Do you ever second guess yourself? That was a constitutional right that you had to send those votes back to the states.
I know by God's grace I did exactly what the Constitution of the United States required of me that day. I kept my oath.
Former Vice President Mike Pence was in Iowa when a voter who was very unhappy about his decision to not go along with Trump's demands to reject Electoral College votes on January 6, 2021, expressed her displeasure with him and said that he was responsible for Joe Biden's presidential win. He very clearly disagreed and was spicy in the process of doing so. Let's watch more.
You were commenting on the fact that all of these problems belong to Joe Biden, and they do. However, if it wasn't for your vote, we would not have Joe Biden in the White House.
Right.
Joe Biden shouldn't be there. And all those wonderful things that you and Trump were doing together would be continuing, and this country would be on the right path. Do you ever second guess yourself? That was a constitutional right that you had to send those votes back to the states. It was not like you were going to personally elect him. We all know by the number of votes that were there who won that election.
We do know who won that election based on the number of votes, Electoral College votes, and Pence did respond to her and explained how the process actually works. Let's watch.
The Constitution of the United States in Article 2 says the job of the Vice President is to serve as the presiding officer of a joint session where you open and count the votes. Don't take my word for it, go read the Constitution. Not really, I say this with great affection and respect. The Constitution is very clear. My job was to oversee a session of Congress where objections could be heard, and I made sure that objections would be recognized. So we would hear whatever evidence or whether debate there was. But the Constitution says you open and count the votes, no more, no less. The Constitution affords no authority for the Vice President or anyone else to reject votes or return votes to the states. I'm sorry, ma'am, but that's actually what the Constitution says. No Vice President in American history ever asserted the authority that you have been convinced that I had. But I want to tell you, with all due respect, I said before, I said when I announced, President Trump was wrong about my authority that day, and he's still wrong.
So, in other words, read the Constitution, bro. Right, like that's, leaning back, pointing. Like I've never seen him so cool and collected. It almost feels like that was a plan, but it wasn't. I don't think there's no indication of that.
No. We know for sure it's not a plan because later she said that he was respectful and she kind of liked it and she heard him out.
So we'll get to that in a moment. But what did you think about how Pence handled that?
So I thought he did a great job with it. So our job's to be honest. So that I'm not a fan of Mike Pence and I wouldn't vote for him if my life depended on it. But he is absolutely right on those facts. And every day I grow more comfortable saying that his actions on January 6th were heroic. And so both not leaving the building to make sure he got the job done. And he is, yes, he's kissed Trump's ring many times before and after January 6th. Yes, he's equivocating, all those things. But when push came to shove and Trump bullied everyone else, they always caved and did whatever he wanted. And Pence, when it counted the most for our democracy, did not cave. And you got to give the brother that. And his answer here was near perfect, not just because he's factually correct, but he said it in a way where he was not fighting with the person, he was not insulting them, he was getting them to maybe open their mind to facts they never heard because they listened to right-wing media and Donald Trump.
I'm actually shocked. Well, let's do this. Why don't we get to the next video? Because CNN caught up with her after that exchange to see if she was persuaded. How did she feel about how Pence answered her questions? Let's watch.
What do you think after hearing Mr. Pence's answer?
I believe he's a good man. I love the fact that he is strengthened by his faith. But I really do feel like he altered history.
Would you consider supporting Mr. Pence after listening to him today?
I
would consider it, but he has that one hiccup.
Okay, never mind. You oversold that video. I hadn't seen it before the show.
Oh, but that's because I was about to say, but she also said.
Yeah, I thought maybe he persuaded her. And and I was gonna give her a lot of credit, and it was gonna give me a little hope for the future of this country, because if that had happened, it would communicate to me, no, if you talk calmly to people and you explain how the process works, they're persuadable. At least in this particular case, that didn't happen.
No, but it's ironic, but I'm more hopeful about that than you are, because she was listening. She didn't go, I hate him. She said he's a good man, and she'd consider supporting him. I've never seen MAGA with someone that Trump told him crossed him and was a traitor and all that stuff. Say, no, I'm open to considering him. And there she was, open to considering him.
I mean, to be fair, she's a woman. We're just a little more tethered to reality and like to practice common sense. I'm just kidding. But no, I mean, there's something, there's something about her character that just stands out and is a little different from the stereotypical Trump supporter that the media loves to blast.
Yeah, to me, she was like the prototypical voter that you talk about, the MAGA voters. Like, not that they're all like that. Anna just says that there's a big contingent, and I agree with this, that it is just got the wrong information, right? And maybe they were predisposed to that wrong information. Maybe they wanted to hear the wrong information, but they definitely got the wrong information. You could tell from the entire exchange that she genuinely thought that Trump had won and that Pence screwed him by going outside the Constitution, when the exact opposite is true.
Right.
So she didn't come in there with like, let's get the Democrats by cheating and ending democracy. I want to be part of the coup. No, she doesn't know. She just doesn't know. Nonetheless, she does say he altered history. But in a sense, that's kind of true. She doesn't mean it that way, but Pence altered history in the right way, right? If it was a complete lackey who had no spine at all to Trump, they would have gone in there and tried to complete the coup and bring in the fake electors. And that would have been a very different timeline.
Okay, I have a question about that though. So let's say Pence really had no spine at all, and when it mattered most, he ceded to Donald Trump's demands. I mean,
that had a real chance of working.
Really?
Yeah, I'll tell you why. I'll tell you exactly why. And that's why I love that Jack Smith is pursuing the fake elector scheme.
Okay.
Because that's at the very core of what I actually think was is an actual attempted coup. Okay. And so not the rioters. The rioters are just wasting time, distracting. And the point of the rioters were not to take the building and keep the building. The point of the rioters was to intimidate the politicians into saying, okay, we'll bring it back to the states. Because if Pence listens to Trump when he's supposed to just count the states, that's his only job in the Constitution. He cannot disagree, he cannot change them, right? And the Constitution is very clear, as he outlined. If instead he said, screw the Constitution, I'm gonna go with what Trump says. Okay, Wisconsin says Biden won, I don't believe him. We're sending it back to Wisconsin to get us the real electors. Well, then they can't certify the vote that day because he literally blocked the proceeding to certify the vote.
Correct.
What happens when they go back to those states? Well, a lot of those states have, even though they voted for Biden, they have Republican-held legislatures. And the Republican legislatures got the fake electors ready. And a lot of those fake electors signed a document saying, I'm the real elector, and they handed it into the federal government. And Jack Smith is now flipping those guys, the prosecutor. And he's getting them to admit, yeah, I was lying, I'm not the actual elector. And so-
Isn't that fraud?
Yeah, that's why they're in a lot of trouble.
Okay, but my point is, and I'm sorry for dragging this out, but I am genuinely curious. So if Pence had done something unconstitutional and went along with what Trump wanted, and if you had all these fraudulent electors essentially giving this victory to Donald Trump, wouldn't the Democrats sue? Wouldn't they take this to the Supreme Court? And wouldn't? And look, I get that the Supreme Court is right wing. But as we have shared with you in various rulings as of late, they actually sided with an employee versus the actual corporations in a recent case.
No, I'll tell you why.
Yeah.
So look, would the Supreme Court then go, screw the Constitution, we're going with the fake electors? Well, in 2000, the Supreme Court said screw states' rights, even though they pretend to be in favor of states' rights, and they literally stopped Florida from counting. And they said, no, Bush won, we don't want you to count it, okay? And so that, the Supreme Court has already stolen an election. That's not 1% hyperbole. Secondly, here there's a mechanism with which they could have used to steal this election. They could have said, hey, listen, the state legislatures say one thing, you Democrats say another. It's a political question, and we're invoking the political question doctrine. So that you guys deal with it politically, it's not for us to decide. Elections are your business, not our business, okay?
Good point.
And if they do that, then the Republican legislatures go, sorry, the fake electors are real. And even if you have a controversy, it goes to the House. But the House picks the president, but it does it state by state. And Republicans, even then, even though they had less members of the House, they had more states, so they would have won. So that plan was not a terrible plan. That's why
it was actually low-key genius.
Yes, that's why Peter Navarro and Steve Bannon often brag about it. They're like, look, we had this thing stolen. If this son of a bitch Pence would just burn the Constitution, I think we could have gotten Clarence Thomas and Alito to say, oh, political question doctrine.
Oh, wow.
And we steal the goddamn election. And so that's why, no, you should not underestimate how heroic Pence was for, yes, the lowest bar in history, just doing his job. But when you know a lot of other Republicans that stood up to Trump in that time?
Definitely not.
Definitely not. And in a lot of ways, he saved the country. And here he is telling the truth to Republican voters, a truth they almost never hear.
Pence Uyghur 2024?
No.
I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
No.
That'd be the most insane thing on the planet. That would never happen.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.